Greetings YouTube. Today we are talking about the Mateminco MT35mini-S. So I'm going to unbox it here. I've already got some experience with this light, so I'm going to jump right into what makes this a bit different and such a cool light in my opinion. So here's your box, has a picture of the light on the outside of it. Inside you've got your standard manual and stuff. It's well packaged. They give you some O-rings taped to the lid, so some replacement O-rings, pretty standard stuff. This is the light itself. So you can see it comes with an 18650 tube and an 18350 tube. We'll jump into that more as we get along here. So here is the light. I love that this light comes in different colors, so you're not limited to the standard boring black of most flashlights. In blue or red or whatever other colors there are out there, it's a lot easier to find if you drop it or something, or if it's buried in your gear bag. I love the stainless steel bezel around here because I'm always setting flashlights down like this, so this doesn't get scratched up as easily. Really cool additions to that light. Like the wrist strap, you can size it down so that if it falls out of your hand, it doesn't just slip off of your hand. That's pretty cool. So lots of things to like about this light so far. What's really most exciting to me about this is the fact that it's a high CRI. This is a 4000K light, and it's a true thrower. I know what you're going to say. The title of this video says pocket thrower. This doesn't look very pocketable, right? It doesn't look very pocketable until you use the 18350 tube. So I'm going to put the 18350 tube and an 18350 battery in here. All right, just take the 18650 tube off. Take off the back because you need the back of the flashlight still. Stick your 18350 tube in there. The threads without the anodization go towards the flashlight. And now we're dealing with a very pocketable light. So this is very easy to be carrying around in your pocket. I've done it a lot. You can see it's nice and small on my hand. Here is it compared to a Thrunite Thrower headlamp, right? Relatively small. This is it compared to a Convoy S21E. So that's a very pocketable light, popular pocketable flashlight. Now, one thing you do not want to do is confuse this with the Mateminco MT35 This is a Mateminco MT35mini-S. This is a Mateminco MT35 Mini. Why they named the lights so similarly, I don't know. But if you shop for one of these, it's very easy to come up with a listing for the other one because Google doesn't differentiate very well. So make sure you are getting the light you can fit in your pocket as opposed to the one that you absolutely cannot. So let's get into the UI, stuff like that. Again, I cannot get over how excited I am that this is a 4000K light and it's a true thrower. And a lot of that has to do with the LED that is in this light. I'll put the specs down at the bottom, but this is the SFT40 LED, which is a flat LED in a medium size. And as you can see, it produces a very tight beam. This light has a very good, very moonlight mode, so it stays very low. You can see on my hand there. This is the moonlight for the Convoy S21E. So you can see that's really pretty bright for a moonlight mode, whereas this one is what a moonlight mode should be. The user interface is a kind of a simplified one. You hold down to get to moonlight, and then you have to long press to take it off. So hold to moonlight, hold again to get it off. If you hold to moonlight, or really no matter what mode you're in, a quick press turns you to the next mode up. So you got, and then it'll cycle back through the regular modes, but not all the way down to moonlight. So you've got, it always starts off in low. When you short press from off, it always starts out to low. You don't have a choice there. So when it's off, you have long press to moonlight, long press off. You have quick press on to low, and then you quick press through medium, high, and ultra high. And then turbo is a double click from anywhere. So double click from off is still turbo, but you can't scroll to turbo through the other modes. If I go through here and click through my modes, it never actually takes me to turbo. That's the ultra high. Double click and you can see it still gets a little bit brighter to get me to turbo. One thing that's a little unusual about the turbo mode from this is when you double click to turbo, a single click doesn't turn it to the next mode. What it does is turn it to the mode that you were just in. So if I'm off and I double click to turbo, a single click will turn it off again, as opposed to when I'm in my regular modes, I have to hold press to off. So let's say that I'm in low mode, right? And then I double click to turbo, and then I single click back again, it takes me back to low mode. I didn't like that at first because it seemed inconsistent to me. But if you're using this as a walking around light, which is not the greatest for, you'll see that with the beam shots. But if you're using it for that, that's actually really helpful, because when I'm walking around in the woods, I generally want a relatively low amount of light to see what's right in front of me. And then I might hear a noise and I want to see something far away, and I double click it up to turbo. Well, then I don't want to scroll through all the modes to take it back to where I was. All I have to do with this light is single click and it's right back to where I want it. So I actually like that feature, which I didn't think I would like at first. The tint on this is absolutely fantastic. It's a very true 4000K tint. And it throws really well. As you'll see in the beam shots, I use this routinely out to 125 yards. You can actually see usable light with this little tiny thing out to about 220 yards. And that's where it starts to get a little bit dim and start to struggle. But for this size, it's an absolutely fantastic high CRI, pocketable thrower, which I know is something that people have been looking for years. One thing I did want to mention is there are some reviews out there talking about the threads on the tubes for this light, like these threads here where the back screws on, failing. So the reason why that happened is because this light, the tubes, the 18650 and the 18350 tubes on this light are sized for unprotected cells. A protected cell that has the button on the end is too long to put in these lights. And when you do, what happens is you have to crank on the back of the light so tightly that it actually strips the threads out. So as long as you use unprotected cells in these lights, the threads should be fine. Don't put a protected cell in there. It will go in, I tried it, but you put so much torque on the threads that you will eventually strip them out. So let's go ahead and look at some beam shots and see what this light looks like in action. Here we are with beam shots for the Mateminco MT35mini-S. Here it is on turbo. So this is the barn beside me, out to the greenhouse there at 60 yards, coming over to the corner of the wall there at 40 yards, and then pushing up to the trees out there at 120. So you can pretty well see those trees clearly at 120 yards. So you'll see the beam has a very bright center spot, and then it has kind of a step off in the middle. So there are some issues with this beam from a visibility standpoint, but it does give a pretty good spot and spill. There is kind of a zone of darkness in your awareness out there you can see at distance. But overall, this is an excellent spot kind of thrower for such a pocket size. I'll compare it here to the Thrunite Thrower headlamp, my usual comparison. There's the barn. There's a greenhouse at 60, corner of the wall at 40. And then you can see some out there at 120, but it's not nearly as bright. I'll put them up side by side here. So you can see a much brighter spot with the MT35 Mini, especially at distance, but not as good of a spill. There they are, kind of side by side down there at 60 yards, and then at 40. So a lot more light, but definitely a tighter spill, tighter beam. Here is it in comparison to the Convoy M21E. So you can see the M21E has a lot brighter, or a lot larger spill, a lot more situational awareness, a lot more even of a beam, but it kind of loses all of its light when you start to get out there at the longer distances. Here they are side by side. So brighter central spot on the Mateminco, but a lot better kind of an even beam pattern on the Convoy. There's out at 120, so you can see pretty clearly seeing the trees out there at 120. With this one, not so much with the Convoy. I can see them with my naked eye, but I can definitely see a lot more clarity in them with the Mateminco. So overall, really nice spot light, good pocket thrower, not really a spill light as much, not quite as good of a walking light, especially at the lower beam patterns. Here's the low pattern compared to the low on the thrower headlamp. So tighter spot, less awareness. Overall, I really like this light. This is kind of what I was looking for in a pocket high CRI 18650, 4000K thrower. So this was what I was personally looking for. It may not be what you were looking for, but really like this light as far as like a pocket usable thrower. I think it's probably the best out there at the moment for something that has that nice, warm, good color recognition tint.